right, I think we'll get started. I'll call today's meeting to order. Jen, will you do roll call, please?
Tom McDonald,
Here?
Len Tucci, Jennifer Finley, Jim Molitor,
Here.
Carol Langford, Terry Pitts, Bing Matt, Ellie Bundy,
Present.
Martin Charlo,
Present.
Mike Delson,
I'm here.
James Steele Senior.
Thank you, Jen. Bing is in Browning attending a service with his family. All right, start us out with a prayer today. Carol, would you please lead us in a prayer?
Creator, today we just ask you to be with us and watch over us as we take care of issues for our membership. And we also ask you to be with Bing and his family today as we partake in a service in Browning. And we also ask you to watch over our families who have recently lost loved ones, especially the Jennison family, Jake, and watch over that family and give them the strength they need to carry on. And we also ask prayers for Liberty Proof and others who have recently passed, and just be with their families. We also ask for a prayer for anybody that is traveling this week and be safe and be with their families. And we also ask for a prayer for first responders and police and keep them safe and strong, and especially our elders and our children coming up.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, we have some minutes from April 4th and of course the quarterly on the 7th. So April 4th first for your review. Motion to approve with changes. Motion by Mike to approve the April 4th Tribal Council minutes with any changes. Second by Martin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Ellie and Jennifer, can you hear me? Abby, can you hear me?
Morning, I can hear you.
Okay. All right, we'll go with 8-4, one out of the room and one absent. Move on to the quarterly minutes from April 7th. I have one correction on the quarterly minutes, Abby, in my statement referencing the land back. In that last part, the tribes are involved with trading of Forest Service and BLM off reservation lands for obtaining ownership of various state trust lands on the reservation. Just a point of clarity.
Mr. Chair,
Hey, go ahead, Ellie.
Abby, on my section for the quarterly, it should be urged Congress to fully fund law enforcement programs. And also on the t-shirts on the end, the t-shirts that are being sold to raise funds for the walk are a separate t-shirt sale from the ones being sold to help fundraise for Rosie. So maybe just putting the word separately, I guess t-shirts are being sold. That's it. And I would make a motion to approve the minutes from the quarterly with any additional changes.
Thank you, Ellie. Motion by Ellie to approve the April 7th tribal council minutes with additional or all corrections. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. Abby, on my statement, here's a spelled Tirza. Thank you.
Seconded by Mike to approve the tribal council minutes of April 7th with corrections. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Carol? Unanimous. Okay, we have our agenda before you. Any additions to today's agenda? Jen?
We have a walk-in, but I'm still waiting for the information.
Okay. Martin?
I'll have an issue and open, please.
Okay. Any other items? Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Robbie Erling has requested to come in and talk to council this morning. I see Lance is represented, and I also thought maybe Shane Hendrickson should be part of this. It's a pretty important issue on lands. It's on the McDougal, which is the mother of Robbie Erling's land, and there's an encroachment on their building on his land at this time, and he'd like to discuss this with the tribe.
Okay. Any other items for the agenda today?
And we maybe might need legal too for one.
Well, I think we have legal available today, so if they show up, we'll call them down. Anything else? Good to go? Motion by Len to approve today's agenda, second by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. The first walk-in? No? Yep. Come on up. There's a button on that speaker thing you have to push so that they can hear you.
The dark one? Okay. I was presented by one of my friends in Marley that somebody was building on my mom's property on Highway 200. It's between mile marker 96 and 97. It was adjacent to Val Bolus's property before he passed away. I was there last year and I didn't see anything going on, and then this year I showed up and just out of the blue, and somebody's got a house built on there, and so I went up and talked to the gentleman, and he said that this was his property, and I said, well, this was this was my great grandma's property, and I pulled it up on cadastral, and it showed, you know, that my mom still was the owner of it, and my mom passed away here back in 2012, and she had a will in Spokane that was never signed, so the only living will she had was made here at the complex back in the early 70s. And a year later, a federal judge had us come here, asked me, my brother, and my sister, any living relatives to show up here for the will reading, and I was the only one that showed up. And he said that the will in Spokane was null and void because it was never signed. So he granted me everything that, because I was the only living relative that showed up to the will reading. But I've never put this property in my name or anything. It's still in Florence McDougal Erling is the property name. So I was just asked this guy who sold him the property, and he wouldn't be, he wouldn't tell me anything. He said, no, you have to find that out yourself. I bought it from the guy that bought Val Bolus's property. So this guy from Val Bolas, the man who purchased Val Bolus's property contacted me last year asking me if I wanted to sell this property, and I said I really didn't have any interest in selling my great grandmother's property. And he proceeded to ask me a couple more times, and I just kind of told him no, and then apparently this happened. So I don't know what, I don't know how somebody got permission to sell any of this property.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Is this property in trust?
I believe it's I don't know whether it be trust or not. My mom, it was left to my mom from her grandmother. They grew up there their whole life, her and her 5 sisters.
Okay.
But
And what was your name, sir?
my name's Robert Erling.
Okay. And your mother was?
Florence McDougal Erling.
Okay. But the property was not in trust, nor it was a home site either, correct?
At one time it was their home site. But I mean, it had been a long time, and the home that was actually on there burned down back in, I'd have to say about 2007. A wildfire came through and burned the log cabin down that was there.
Okay. Was there a survey done on the property?
Not that I know of. I really don't know a lot about the property other than it was in my mother's name.
Okay, because if it was not trust property, then we probably wouldn't have too many we wouldn't have no records of it unless it was a former allotment.
If it was, it would have been a lot of years ago. Like I said, it was my grandma's property, and when I pulled it up on cadastral, it showed the outline of it. I had it last night on my phone, and I couldn't pull it back up today. I don't know why, but it showed her everything that, you know, it showed the property number, the parcel number, it showed the value of the property, the grazing value, you know, it showed everything on it. All I could say is I could try to look into it a little bit more, but it should have been trust land, I believe. I mean, we had 300 and some, 400 and some acres from Magpie Creek down, that Mom sold back to the tribe back in, it had to have been after my dad died. It had to have been about 2007, 2008. But she was born and raised there, grew up there. So I don't know what else to tell you about her. I don't know how I would go about finding out anything more about it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Robert, you said that the administrative law judge said he granted it all to you.
Yeah,
And so why would a federal judge be involved unless it was trust? I would think that it would have to be trust if there was an administrative law judge involved.
well, from what I understand, what he told me is that, see, my brother and sister were granted everything from this will and testament in Spokane, Washington. Well, it was null and void. And the only will she ever made out that was legal was the one that she had done here at the tribe. And so that's why he came in and, you know, this was a year later. And I told him, I said, well, you know, I don't want my mom to turn over in her grave for me taking my brother and sister's inheritance. But my brother and sister kind of just left me out of everything. And my sister's a professor at the University of Montana here. And we don't talk, you know, ever since my mom and dad died. My dad, we talked when my dad was alive, or after my dad died, but 10 years later, my mom passed away. And after that, they just kind of pushed me off in the side. I'm not really trying to take anything from anybody right now. I just want to know how come they're building on this property when they don't have any right to build on it.
Carol?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Lance, why this is even in here. We don't have enough information. You need to figure out the details, and then you need to work with the superintendent and legal, and then bring it back in if we need to take action on something. But I think somebody needs to get on this right away. If he,
Yeah, well,
wait, can I finish?
oh, sorry.
If he assumes that this is his property, we just need to figure it out. We've got all the, I think all of the documents or any kind of information that he would need to prove that it's his and then go from there. But I think to bring it to us at this point is pointless because we don't have enough information just from what this gentleman, are you enrolled here?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think if you can take him and help him, maybe you have the information. Just doesn't sound like it at this point.
Yeah, actually, I was just looking up on my phone. I received a call on this last night at almost 7 o'clock. It's first I heard about it. So I wanted to sit down with George. He's out until noon, so we can go over the records and everything else.
Yeah, we don't exactly have enough information. This is, what county is this?
Sanders.
Sanders County? And the will was recorded with K, I would assume, here?
Yeah, I was here.
With Francis or somewhere, yeah.
Someone.
Should be.
Okay.
I'm assuming. So there's a lot of work that has to be done out of our office first to be able to find out all this information.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So Robert, we need to do some more research, as Carol pointed out, so we'll be able to get all the file together and try to identify the best course we might be able to assist you.
And I realized that, and I was just found out about this last night.
And tell me exactly where the house is, where is this property?
Between mile marker 96 and mile marker 97.5 on Highway 200. And it goes from the river to the railroad tracks, from the railroad tracks to the highway, and from the highway up to the top of the hill.
I'm really interested in helping this gentleman as much as we can. I think there's a request for
200
electricity going in for this parcel.
240 acres.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Ken Wabansi and myself, we have the ground adjacent to that leased. And he came in there, that guy, and tore all the fence out. We had livestock get down on the highway. And he had called Lance several times complaining about this and that. And then on the back side, he was going up through Vanderburg Creek and driving up through tribal land, hauling his stuff up there, and they put a fence there. And I don't know who, but the gate was locked, and the gate's been broke, the lock's been cut off, and he's been hauling materials up on top there. And but he's not very friendly. He's a very wealthy guy, I think, out of Florida, and he's just buying this to flip it. But you know, and Robbie he's always a working man. He's very self-employed and very busy, and he doesn't know all the workings of the system. But I told him he has certain rights and he needs to come up here and let council know what's going on so he can get some support to look through this thing.
Thank you, Terry. It's good advice. Yeah, I think this gentleman also is trying to get MVP service, Chevrolet Power Service.
Yeah, I also heard that it wouldn't put power into his place.
Yeah, and I heard that he was going to threaten us and go to the governor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, those guys is really a real piece of work. Yeah. So the red flag at the moment Zanin brought it up. Of course, yeah, it's not good. We would love to have a report back as soon as you can. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. The guy that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Graham Abston. I'm from Marley. He's one of my best friends. I'm just here to support him. So the guy that we had the encounter with on his property that has the house there told Rob, and I witnessed this, that he bought the property from the guy that sold everybody else all the property. So whatever that means, if there's some significance to that, that's just a little tidbit of information that you probably should know. So it wasn't the guy that everybody's all bent out of shape over, the guy from Florida, I don't think, unless he sold the land to the guy that's on his property. But that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Robert. Yep. Work with Mark and see if we can get all the background. And George coming in at noon.
Yeah, he had a doctor's appointment this morning. He's supposed to be in at noon.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if you can find anything out by the end of the day, please report back. Or otherwise, we'll pick it up next Tuesday. We're at
Okay,
the
well,
church meeting.
I thank you for your time and
Thank you, Robert.
I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
just to kind of help clarify, Robbie Erling is the brother to Deborah Erling that wrote Perma Red. So that's their country. That's where that story came from, and it's very important. And I'm sure that his family, his mother that's passed away, and his grandmother, very insulted with this guy. He's went and done, and he's been a real pain for lands.
It's like a pain for everybody. Threatening Mission Valley Power, threatening lands. But Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the only worry I have is if it's the sister and brother that somehow thought they owned it and got this thing into the market. That would be the worry I have.
All right, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to remind everybody that we took the day off tomorrow to go to the medicine trees, so Thursday. That took tomorrow off too, yeah. And then I'll be in Helena tomorrow, Montana invasive species. I'll be back Thursday or tomorrow night. But yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm used to this going live, but it's not. Sad. Be in the minutes after the fact. But yeah, I mean, I think Tom, you reiterated, why it's important for us to go back to the Bitterroot and our homelands, of our Bitterroot Salish people, and, exercise, our connection with the land, and it will never go away pretty much no matter what. So, just want to make sure that everyone that can will go tomorrow. Thank you.
The other thing on Thursday, the Ag Summit starts also like Quituckna Thursday and Friday. So you can attend that. If you don't have enough time to go down to Darby, certainly go to Quitucknuck and check that out. Some good information going to be presented there. The other paramount thing that's happening down there is the potential open pit precious mineral mine application that is very significant. It covers 7 square miles in one of the headwater streams of the Bitterroot River, not too far away from the Medicine Tree. So that's also a reason to start stepping up the stuff. Yeah, they've submitted all the stuff to the Forest Service, and so I've asked Shane to make sure he steps up his watch as our trustee down there, former Forest Service guy, that he could put some pressure on. So we want to stay on top of that one. It's typically open pit, but they can actually tunnel for those precious they call them unique and rare metals that they use for today's equipment and batteries and that type of technology. So it's hard to come by minerals, and so it's that company did quite a bit of research there and then bought up all the mining claims in that general area. I can't remember the name of that creek. Is it Gold Creek? Fish Creek? I can't remember. Anyway, I'll look it up. I'll make sure I make a note of that Thursday. We don't know. Our just our hunting, fishing, gathering rights. Yeah. They're going through the request. The Forest Service is going through the request that they're making, and that would definitely be an outcome. Do that. So they would determine how they could go after those rare minerals, metals, and either through traditional boring, mining, tunnels, or a massive open pit type scenario, and then they have to, of course, treat their water. It's the same issues that we have up in Elk River. You could end up with those same kind of issues. Typically, when whatever the treatment ponds are really the caustic thing that are really dangerous, and so those blow out or issues like that happen. And you have a big mess on your hands. Okay, first agenda item. John, you're up. Chad, good to see you. Dapper as always, by golly. You're making, well, anybody kind of looks good against John. Oh, just sorry, John. Okay. I think John dressed down just to make you look good. That's what it is.
Okay, to start with, this is our venture with SKMM, and one of the biggest things that we're starting with is, well, the roofs and the HVAC, and I think Chad's here today to talk about the HVACs and get the approval on that. There is 43 units, I think, that will be replaced. Some are grossly overdue, and some are just bandaged together. So this is a good thing. It's the right time of year to get started on it. And anyway, I'll let Chad talk.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, everybody knows I like to talk, so this isn't a bad thing at all. What the HVAC opportunity is that when we put SKMM together, we put together an opportunity for support of John and others within the tribe. This opportunity came about. It's for 35 building areas, maximum. I think that it's like 39 or 50, with 150 units that'll take about 13 months to accomplish. The overall, it's for all equipment, labor, duct cleaning, and 1 year of maintenance on all of those units. The risks we have are clearly supply chain. We have sourced, or at least the vendor is sourced, but supply chain continues to be a problem across the board. We're looking at mitigating and managing that supply chain. And then at the very bottom of that, that proposal, there's about a $360,000 contingency. That contingency is for power. When they were doing the site surveys of all of the units out there, what didn't happen because of it would be more cost effective to put a contingency in place for those dollars than it would be it'd be more effective to do this than it would be to pay electrical to come and evaluate each and every one. And so those dollars on the contingency would remain at the tribe's dollars and be used only if there is a problem with the electrical as it pertains to code. Not that there was a mistake in how that was done or whatever, only if there's just a problem with the electrical at those buildings being at code. Other than that, that is, I guess, the overview of what this opportunity is. And if there's any questions about why and how and timeframes or anything else, I'd make John answer.
Any questions from council? Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I did go through it. The first part of it, let's say that, and it looked pretty complete. And so if we need to take action to go ahead and proceed, and like you said, providing the material is probably going to be or obtaining the material is probably going to be the most difficult part of it all. And when I looked at the timeframes that it's going to take the company to do, some of these, it looks pretty tight, but I don't know, if you have a person that's on top of it and watching them, keep track of it, it should stay on track. Otherwise, the cost overruns are definitely expensive. But is there a contingency to over and above? I think I did see that if they did go over, that they could request.
What SKMM is trying to do is trying to eliminate and alleviate change orders that would come back, that unknown, and trying to get everything up front. If the time slips, it shouldn't impact the dollar amounts per se. We've put some extra time and some ability in there, and truly the value for John and crew, I hope, I don't mean to speak for that group, is that John can manage multiple contracts at the time that our project managers are running, and so that he can stick to a high level detail, be updated when appropriate, and our project managers will ensure access and timeliness of as we're going along. And so I think we built that in. That was the attempt, and that SKMM will manage to that.
Do they ever put penalties, if they run over?
In certain contracts, yeah, you put a time lag. This one doesn't have those penalties based on supply chain, but we'll see what happens.
Just John or Lisa, the funding for this contract is coming from where?
It's in the budget. I think it's for this fiscal year.
Yeah, Lisa, the source of the budget for this fiscal year?
Yeah, we currently have it in the deferred budget, but we're working with Greg. We may be able to cover a majority of this, if not all, through ARPA funding.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, ARPA funding. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we do. Motion by Carol to approve the sole source contract with SKMM for HVAC system work on 34 buildings. Well, somewhere north of 35. Okay. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to remind, I had given John Carson Wabansi's phone number for roofing, and I asked him, has he gotten any calls from the tribe? He said no, but he gets somewhat busy in Missoula, but he's got a roofing company, and they're tribal, and they're looking to hear from the tribe if there's any jobs that they want done.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chad, I see Tyson's the manager. I was sort of expecting to see him today. And the other thing I was wanted to ask is, how often can we expect a progress report?
The first part is, and I mean this with the absolute respect of tribal council is I wasn't sending the newbies into the lion's den on the first opportunity. So I figured I would come on the first one. And then, quite honestly, once approved, I think that John and either Tyson or Kyle, one of the project managers, will set up that communication, an in-depth communication plan on when they need to be contacted. And with that, then John can communicate with you on what that rhythm and tempo is. But they'll set up a communications plan. And I do mean lion's den in the most respectful way, sir.
And that could be included in the chair's meeting. Also, that communication
Could be.
if time permitting.
Sure. Good idea. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, show of hands. Ellie? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, John. Chad.
Good to see you, bud.
Might as well just stay up. You're up next, Chad. You're up. I think you can stay there, bud. Yep. A good spot. Well, this is really a cool handout. Enterprise Award, the 2023 Native Tribal Business of the Year. That is really cool.
All right, guys, good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was S&K Aerospace is you know, when we get through the 8A, and we'll go into the presentation, it's just about this, and that is when we get to the 8A stuff, the intent of the 8A program is to utilize the program to learn, to grow, to develop capabilities that are successful into the future. And this is, I guess, a little bit that says that SKA is, we won 8A Business of the Year, Graduate of the Year a couple of years back. And now this is a different award that says that we continue to utilize that program to our benefit, but continue also to maximize the value of what we put into that. That the 8A program is a great program that teaches and allows corporations to succeed even after those advantages are no longer. And SKA is a shining example of what that is. We're incredibly pleased with the leadership. That's a gentleman named Tony Amadeo, who has been with SK Technologies for about 15 to 17 years. Incredible, dedicated individual, which we have a lot of at SK. But yeah, it's incredibly. If I would like to, and it'd be council's, I guess, your preference, if you would.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman and council members. We're here to give you our report on our program. Chad will lead off, and I think you got some documents in front of you that you may be asking questions about, and that's fine. We're here to answer as much as we can, and that should be most of them that you have. With
Okay.
that, I guess let's turn it over to.
But I'm just
Maybe
gonna
make
stop you
sure-
right there. I want to make sure we go into the shareholders position meeting. And
Do what?
I think we have some minutes to approve too. We'll
didn't hear
take care of that
him.
first.
business to do before we
Yeah.
start. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if everybody get the minutes. There was a minute, apparently, was approved back in April 15th, 2021. So that minutes, and then the minutes of April 7th, 2022.
I'll make the motion to approve the April 15th, 2021 minutes.
Motion by Martin, seconded by Len to approve the April 15th, 2021 SNK Technologies minutes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? So Terry's abstaining, okay. Jimmy, you're abstaining? Okay.
Make the motion to approve the April 7th, 2022 minutes.
Motion by Martin, seconded by Len to approve the April 7th, 2022 Technologies minutes. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Go ahead, bud. Sorry.
Yeah, as in past years, we're prepared to answer the questions that you might come up with reading our documents that was presented to you earlier. We're here to answer all those questions. If you have any, we're here. We're very proud of our program. Bob and I has been on as a board member on the program here for about 8 or 10 years. And Kevin's been on there a few years, 6 years. Of course, we have a new board member, but we're very proud of the program. We have a lot of employees scattered throughout states, and it's in your program. But that's about all I can come forward with. Bob, do you have anything?
Thank you. It's funny the facilities you lose as your time goes by. I just wanted to, Mr. Chairman, if the council would indulge us for a minute, the significance of the S&K Aerospace SBA Small Business of the Year is made even more incredible by the fact that for the 2 years prior to the award in 21 and 22, that company, that branch, was, as you recall, under an Air Force investigation, a whistleblower investigation that was incredibly intense. It took an incredible amount of time from the staff. It took an incredible amount of energy. And luckily, it ended exactly like we expected it to. There were no findings, and we're stronger than ever. But just to go through that and put the staff to it, and Chad's leadership with the attorneys. I mean, the attorneys wanted to settle 6 or 8 months before we got to the end. So in light of that, it really is quite a statement for them to win that award. The second thing, I think that it's important that one of the things I recall very early on in discussions, I remember Carol being part of it, and I mean, 20 years ago, the technologies had one purpose, and that's to go out and take advantage of the opportunities of 8A and bring a check, the bigger the better, home to this tribe, so that we can continue to truly be sovereign and independent. And we just, as you know, we just renewed Chad's contract here this year. He's already starting the second 5-year term, and we had a tremendous discussion. We've had a very committed board. Kevin's been a wonderful addition. Jeff, we appointed, and I thought, Jeff, who the hell is this guy? He lives out in Maryland. And I was going, this doesn't make any sense, but in retrospect, he's been really, I mean, he comes from the industry, so he has questions and insight that we don't have, so it was a very good selection. Although, Steve was a fine board member, but really this guy's been great. So I just wanted to add that and let you know that we have reinforced our faith in Chad, and he's earned it. I mean, he gets down and dirty. I remember when I'd mentioned our tenure. I was appointed to this board in 2010, and Tom was still there. And Tom was a good leader. He had a really good staff. But I'd ask him a question about one of the entities. What's going on? We heard about this, and he'd say, Rita, take care of that. And then Rita would give you 10 minutes of what the background is and what the result is and why we were there. You take any one of our LLCs, and I think we have 9. Wow, see, it is tough to get old. 12 LLCs, and I can assure you, you ask a question about any one of them. When we're in a board meeting, we get pretty in-depth details from each one of those presidents. Chad can answer the question. It's just incredibly important, I think, to have that kind of coverage. So I just wanted to say, they just don't hand those things out. And Chad's been very humble, but his support of Tony and the crew there at Aerospace, and communication, and never ever given up. It was a very telling test. And I think we came through it very well. So thank you for indulging me.
I just wanted to say a couple words. First of all, thank the council for reappointing me to the board. Since retiring, I've come down with a few medical conditions that have slowed me up a little bit, but I'm still here, so that's good. I just wanted to tell you that in serving on this board, I've had the privilege over the years of serving on a number of different boards, including being chairman of the State Transportation Commission, and this board is it's different. It's different in the sense that it's all tribally focused. It's focused on our future, and it's committed to the mission and the goals of the tribe. And when we meet, we have very analytical meetings. We get into deep discussions about these projects. But I'll be the first to tell you that if you ask me a specific question about any of the 12 LLCs, I may not know. And but I don't think that's the role of the board to micromanage the LLCs. The role of the board is to provide guidance to the CEO. And we stay focused on doing that and not get into the weeds of day-to-day management. But I think the council can rest assured that, you know, we're moving in a real positive direction, and as the world is an uncertain place at this time, considering, you know, we have a lot of contacts with the contracts and contacts with the military, but we don't know, that could change just as when the presidential election happened, a whole bunch of our projects related to a new company that we invested in the National Towers. With the new administration, a lot of those contracts went by the wayside or put on hold. And so it affects the overall outcome, and we're gaining some of those back, but just a reminder of the consequences of elections and how fragile this is, this working relationship we have with the federal government. So again, thank you for the opportunity to serve, and I haven't been in this chamber since I retired, so it's good to be back for a short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Pete, you have anything to add as a new returning board member? Well, you come up, use a speaker if you could, so that Ellie and Jennifer can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, just started, thank you, was just appointed to the board last week or 2 weeks ago, and then was able to attend the meeting on Friday. We, you know, a lot of high level discussion from working at SK and also being a former board member, definitely a change in tone as far as just what is being presented and how it's being presented. A lot of information, you know, credit to Chad, you know, worked with him on the board before. You know, I'm very impressed in how we're able to move forward and just the volume, right? Back 10 years ago, serving, the volume has changed to another level. And I think that speaks volumes to the management and the direction that SK Technologies wants to go. So looking forward to the things that are going to come, really. So.
Thank you, Pete. Earl?
Yeah, first I want to say, Chad, I'm really proud of you. And I was really sorry to see the passing of your father. And I know he'd be very proud of you. And that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Sure, get me at the beginning and instead of the end. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate it.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always appreciate Kevin as a Dixon graduate. We're always very proud of him. And question to Chad, I have a sense of the 8A, but have we acquired any contracts without 8A? Have we grown to that point of expertise? Or maybe Bob?
The answer to that is absolutely. We have somewhere in the vicinity of 82 contracts currently right now. Less than half are 8A. Some of our bigger contracts, and that's, I think the intent of the 8A is to get those capabilities built so that we can go and win bigger contracts. The PROS contract, which is the $4.6 billion contract, is full and open. The F-15 was full and open. A great deal of our dollars are through full and open, and one of the reasons that aerospace won that award is because of our continued success outside of the program as well.
Thank you. Well, you're surrounded with very top end people and yourself, and great job. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of council, if I'd like to start by Josh Mackey is our Chief Administrative Officer, back there in the blue. One of the key components of the leadership team of SK Technologies, and right behind him is Catherine Martin, the Executive Assistant, who who generally keeps me out of trouble for the most part and gets me lined out into what the most important thing to do for SNK Technologies. Overall, our staff, and we'll get into it a little bit as we get into the executive piece, but the key to success in business is surround yourself with incredibly bright and incredibly dedicated and talented people, and I've been lucky enough to do that. We're currently in a search for a CFO, and we're taking that incredibly seriously because of what it means to the team, to the management team. Have some good candidates. We actually have a meeting later. We did the interviews last week to round out what our folks are doing. But with that, I'll get right into the every year when we do the presentation, it's in a three-part: the past, the present, and the future. The past is clearly the audit. It's represented by what we did last year, and I try to put a brief together, which is page 3 of the booklet. I'm not exactly sure what it is with your numbering system, but the shareholder brief. We did about $527 million in sales last year with a net profit of about $18.7 million. The dividend declared by the board in January of this year was 8.4. I didn't have a chance to get a hold of Greg, but I believe that that 4.2 of the 8.4 was either delivered on Friday or yesterday. With our dividends by the end of the year, SNK Technologies will have delivered $71.55 million back on its initial investment from the tribe in 1999. An incredible testament, not necessarily to the actions of today, but to the base of what the trust of the tribal council and the leadership of SNK Technologies in those early years. When you look at, and I'm not trying to bash some of the ANCs, the Alaska Native Corps, but over half the ANCs went bankrupt in their first go-round. Looking at the corporations of SNK, the CSKT tribes, you look at SNK Technologies, you look at gaming, you look at electronics, and of course we spun out of electronics in 1999. It's a great testament to how that works and the dedication of the tribe, board members and staffs of those things to get to where it is. Right now, as we go down through the basic numbers of what we have, remember that cash, receivables, payables are a spot in time. They end on the end of September. And so the fluctuations year to year, it changes so much. SNK Technologies, to do $527 million, we have to chew through about $43 million a month, pro and con, the payments and receivables. And so when we're looking at receivables at 37, that's less than a month's receivables on the corporation. It's amazing how big these numbers and how big the swings can be, but it's a spot in time. And so the corporation and myself, we look at these continuously, but for an audit, the big numbers versus on gross sales and net profit, dividend, and then as we get into net position, that's the value of the company. That's the second to the bottom line before that piece of $73.4 million. That's what they consider the value of SNK Technologies right now is about 73.4. And so if you marry up the 73.4 with the 71.55, which would be the dividend by the end of this year, we're talking $144 million of value to the tribes accumulated by the efforts of SNK Technologies since inception. The bottom note is also equally important that the audit was again unqualified. That represents the best possible outcome of an audit. That isn't to say that there weren't some challenges, and we'll go over the 2 challenges real quick. We had 2 findings of the company. Both were in internal controls. One was that the receivables were late. So in the timing of things, both of them related to timing. We received them, and it was too long of a period between receiving them and being applied against contract. Our staff and our auditors and I have emails to the fact that those don't affect the numbers. It's simply that there is a timing issue, and without proper and punctual timing, there could be issues. The audit team did not find those issues that would arise to something of a concern that there was money management problems. It is that team has fallen behind. We have made several steps to correct that. One is to bring on a new CFO. One is to bring in a nationally recognized financial institution in Baker Tilly to engage in 3 efforts. The first effort was to look at our financial planning analysis and budget. The second one was to look at our financial software of record, which is CostPoint, and to ensure that we are using it to the most effective and efficient manner possible. And the third one is to look at our policies and procedures of the financial institution part of SNK Technologies. And they are, one effort is complete, and they're right in the middle of the other efforts to ensure that we do not have these problems in the future. With that, again, as we go down this list, chapter 1 is the audit. If there's any questions, I can go through the pieces of it, but the highlights are really one, that there were 2 audit findings, and I explained those, or at least tried to. 2, what the mitigation of those findings are, and that is replacement of leadership and the employment of an outside company. 2, that again, it's unqualified. They didn't believe that there was any malintent in what was going on there, or there would have been not an unqualified. They would have put a qualified, and they would have noted what that qualified piece. Wow, it decided to rain. And then, like I said, as we look at what we have for numbers, the 527, the 18.7, the dividend that we've declared, all of those things are in line with where we're going. As we discussed with the board, kind of jumping to the present, we had a meeting on Friday. That meeting went over, yeah, those are good numbers. But what does that mean about the future? How do we maintain this for the dividend and the benefit of the tribe into the future? At the annual shareholder meeting last year, there were 168 opportunities into the system. That's proposals that we were either working or had advanced to the government. Of those 168, there was about 58 submitted proposals at that point in time. As of today, we have 198 opportunities that we're working, and 70 some it's like 72. Josh may have a better number, but we'll go with 72. It changes every day. That's why it's a moving target. We submitted some over the weekend. 72 submitted proposals. Our pipeline is about $8.2 billion worth of contracts that we're currently working. Clearly, we won't win all of them, but we've come a long way in our process, our procedures, and our staff to ensure that we put out the best possible proposals out there. SNK Technologies is about as valuable as the next 3 years. If we don't win contracts, our longevity is no longer than 3 years.
Those 72 you're looking at, what are they, mostly military or?
Actually, it's a really good mix at this point in time. That's something that the board of directors has dictated over the last couple of years. If I go back to that first page, there's business concentration. And over the last 3 years, it's been 65, 63, and 68. Prior to that, it was as high as 93% concentration with the U.S. military, and specifically the U.S. Air Force within the military. Currently now, that's about 68. That also equates to pretty much what our proposal rate is that about 68% of our proposals are for the U.S. military or Department of Defense. And the other ones now are in the commercial realm. And then SKMM with doing contracts for the tribe. And so we're looking at that diversity that says, as Kevin said, it's an unknown world out there, and to put all of your 93% of your eggs in one basket is a little short-sighted. And with the direction of the board, we have actively looked at how to put less eggs in the same basket and looked at spreading that
Yeah,
out.
I would just make the assumption that with the bipartisan infrastructure law, that there was a new suite of opportunities for us to look at through SNK Technologies. Is that some of those that you're looking at?
There's a ton of those that we're looking at. You know, as a new administration takes over, it takes about 2 years for their concentration to really become. They got to get it through budgets. They got to get it through. And so the Biden administration is now a little over 2 years old, and some of those dollars from their intention are coming forward. And so right now we're looking very heavily at what they concentrated on and where their dollars are being spent. And those, I think that's the last biggest thrust of our proposal activity, is in what this administration's intent is.
So you got the bill, and then you got the Reduction Act also.
Yeah, and then there's we've looked at the CHIPS Act. We don't have quite the play in that. That's where we're taking. The United States is looking at investing in microchips versus having that all in China. There's all of those type of acts we look at, you know, and then there's some really good things like the Navy has dedicated to utilizing small business to a higher extent. The Biden administration is challenging programs to use small business and the disadvantaged small businesses such as 8A and those type of things. And so again, when the administration changes, it ebb and flows with how a company looks. Are you looking more at military spending, or are you looking more at EPA spending? Are you looking at concentration on small business, or are you looking at more in the line of border security and how that ebb and flows? And we watch those things. We have a lobbyist who helps us watch those things as well, of where the dollars are being spent, and so that we are reactive to those dollars. But unless there's some questions on the audit, that's really all I was going to go through on the audit. That there's changes to it, GASB 87, which you guys may have heard of, that changes the government accounting of lease and lease. That turns that into a right to use asset, makes leases an asset and changes how it goes. And so in the audit, you'll see in several of the front pages that it only shows fiscal year 22, where most audits show a fiscal year comparison. Because of GASB 87, there's no comparison because it changed how it was set up. In next year, you'll have the comparison again and some of those things. But overall, like I said, it's the findings, it's the top line, it's the unqualified, and the rest is the standard basics of an audit. And
Chair, excuse me if you said this, but when do you expect to have that financial officer on board?
we did in-person interviews last week. We flew a gentleman from Salt Lake City and a gentleman from California up. We have a meeting at 1 o'clock today as a hiring committee group to look at the pros and cons and to identify the individuals or how we plan on proceeding with a negotiation with that individual to bring them on. Both of those individuals have dedicated to moving to the area, whether that is Polson, Mission Valley, or Missoula. I'm not 100% sure, but they've dedicated to moving to the area to help our organization. So depending on what they give for time frame, we're talking the next 2 weeks to month and a half.
Okay. That's good, since that's part of your remedy for the audit finding.
Yes, sir. Past the audit, there's the again, the dividend contributions. You can see that from 2012, it was 1.5 million in dividend, all the way to this year, which is 8.4 million in dividend, which again, the fiscal year 12 dividend was a maximum dividend that they could provide at that point in time while building the corporation's capabilities and backlog of work. You can see how that is grown over time. We will in fact have challenges over the next 2 years. We're going to have challenges because the two largest contracts that we've had, the pros contract and the F-15 contract, the pros contract was recompeted and SNK Technologies was not the recipient. Quite honestly, we had several conversations of whether or not we wanted to be the recipient of that or whether we wanted to be a vendor. We went fully after it and we did not get it. That's a big top line revenue number. It doesn't translate into big bottom line numbers, but it is a big top line number. The second one that's going to affect what we do for dividends into the future is the F-15 contract that was intended by the government to be a one-time contract. And we have performed it admirably. We're in the process of closing it out, and there is a lot of information to come on what that means into fiscal year 23 and beyond of what we can do. It hasn't closed. We haven't went through audit. We're getting through the audits of what that is, and there may be some additional dollars because of that. Overall, the company, as Bob indicated, we're organized into 5 general units. There is the cost center, which is the corporate office, which provides all of the service, HR, IT, security, support, finance, contracts, all of those type of things are the corporate services piece of the puzzle. And then there are 4 profit center organizations, the business units of the organization. The aerospace business unit, which has 4 companies, the CMSS, which has 3 companies, ESS, which has 3 companies, and the newest business unit, which is the solutions business unit, and it has 2 companies. That's the company that mission management is held under, which holds the corporate or the tribal contract. The intent of the new business unit, which is again mission management and applied solutions. Applied solutions is a look at taking advantage of government-wide accounting contracts and utilizing the common core and common capabilities of their common quals. And so that we can take advantage of what those bigger, they're letting GWACs, IDIQs out at several $1 billion right now, and then you compete on those. Our best attempt at maximizing that is that the LLC that has the capability would bid. And so when we bid them out of a single LLC, it really inhibits the rest of our capability from taking advantage of that contract. And so we're going to bid them out of an LLC that all companies can bid out of. And so that we can possibly maximize each LLC's core strength as we move forward. And so we're pretty excited about that. And then clearly is intended to both provide support and service to the tribe, as well as provide a dividend back to the tribe, ensure that we maintain historical profit margins of the company and provide that back in a dividend for the tribal use on those. Right now, the opportunities, and we talked about one before this meeting, I'm pretty excited with the reception that SKMM and that contract has had in the tribal departments. They've really looked at that as a life raft that says that, oh, we're overwhelmed. And quite honestly, I don't think that's singularly to the tribe. I think that there's a shortage of employees everywhere. And so with that, people are looking for support that I have this many things to do, but I don't have the manpower to do it. And like I said in that meeting, it'll really give an opportunity to utilize folks like John and Lisa and even Patricia and Rob and everybody else that says that I don't have the manpower to do these contracts, but I still want to oversee them. I still want to ensure that they're done to the standards of the tribe. And therefore, let's partner with a tribal corporation that can help do those. And so I'm very excited about the opportunity for SKMM into the future. Overall, again, our board, Bud Moran Kevin Howlett, Bob Gochi, Jeff Hasania, and then Pete White joined us on Friday as his second foray into the board. We're excited about that. Really happy with the relationship between executive management and the board. That's not always easy. That's a challenging proposition from time to time, because not that we have differing opinions, but we have differing positions on what those opinions may come from, and therefore it takes real and intense conversation on how to get to the right spot. I'm imagining that is frustrating to the board from my position, and it's frustrating from my position. But I think that's what makes the board and the executive management work is that there is that ability to have open and honest conversations, even if it's hard, because that's when the real conversations come up. So with that, like I said, we continue to take advantage of what is out there in the federal space for Hub Zone, 8A, small business. We look at teaming, we look at mentor protege. We look at all of those opportunities in order to further what S&K is doing overall. And how we do that is our employees. And I've skipped all the way to page 62 in my book, talking about our employees. We have 948 employees now. It's down from 1,000 last year. Most of those employees that are no longer part of S&K Technologies were in Saudi Arabia doing the warehousing piece of the F-15 contract. Looking at it quickly, I see 35 tribal members that work for S&K Technologies. Give or take, it could be 36. I don't want to add it up, but it's close. Part of that is the 3 new tribal members in SKMM. I think that is going to help us locally. I think that the vision and focus of those tribal members when interacting with the tribal departments, that everybody has the same direction, the same goal at heart, has really helped. I think that those 3 have done a great job so far, and I expect great things from them into the future. The next page on donations and sponsorship. Again, S&K looks to be a good corporate citizen as part of the Valley. We changed our donation priorities, our donation policy about 5 years ago. That we donate locally. We donate in the 5. Again, we're still a corporation. ROI is still number 1. However, I can tell you in the 5.5 years that I've been here, we have never donated to anything that has brought back ROI locally. We have to keep it in mind, but that's not the driver of donation and that type of community involvement. 2 is tribal. 3 is youth and elderly. 4 is disadvantaged groups. And 5 is, again, local. So what is it that we do and how can we affect both tribal and non-tribal locally? Because our support, community support is tribal support in a lot of these type of things. And we continue to look at that, trying to strengthen within the boundaries of the reservation. And so very proud. I think the number, if I look back, is about 700, is actually 800 and some $1,000 of donations and scholarships given since inception. 793, my bad. Donations and scholarships since the inception of the company. That's not a lot of money. The more money we've made, the more we've given. By the end of next year, we'll have given about 150 to Boys and Girls Club. That is our charter sponsorship. It is impressive to see what they do. It is impressive to see what they have done with that. And quite honestly, they also gave us an incredible plug in our video as well that says, thanking S&K Technologies as a portion of that video that we built for our employees. It meant a lot to our employees to see that they're working for a corporation that does more than Last I checked, none of you guys were driving a Lamborghini because of the dividends given by S&K Technologies, and I'm quite certain that I don't either. And employees want that. Employees want to know their efforts are making a difference. And so that video and Boys and Girls Club had a good plug for us about the difference that S&K Technologies is making both to the tribe and what you do is in social and health and cultural and those type of things with the dividend, but also with what we do locally. It's a huge impactor, and we're incredibly proud of what we do and how we do it. The rest of this is more for your when your board to look at how our business units are structured. The why is important. The what is good reading if you have time. The why is to maximize the strengths of our leadership in each area to lead that group. And so in the aerospace business unit, Dave Raridan is the general manager. He has been in the aerospace market for the better part of 40 years now. He can lead that group twice as well as I could possibly do with the experience that he has. In CMSS, that is our Fed Civ look at things. There's NASA, there's DOE. Binky Bowman is our general manager there. She does a fantastic job of leading that group, and quite honestly, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school because Binky's not here. She's looked at retiring next year. She's going to be hard shoes to fill. But a lot of our senior managers are looking at retiring. I guess that's the part of getting a well-oiled, long-term, seasoned employee is that they're closer to retirement, and sooner or later that happens. So ESS, that's what we did with the assets of the ITI purchase was put them into ESS, into multiple companies. Doug Grotzer runs the majority of what that group is. Again, engineer with 30 years experience. And then right now, because of the newness of the solutions business unit, Josh has stepped in as the general manager until that business unit gets its footing underneath of it, gaining and providing leadership on how to set up those companies, the leadership on how to create an opportunity in those companies, the policies, the procedures, and just that steady leadership. And so he's doing a great job in both of those realms. Overall, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be part of S&K Technologies. I think that what we do makes a difference. I think that is something that we try to sell to our employees, that you do make a difference. And so with that, I'll stop talking because I am dry mouthed and answer any questions that you have.
Questions from council? Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, and thank you all. And once again, congratulations on the small business award that you just received. SK Technologies still a very complex company that I'm still grasping to get an understanding on the companies, and but it's just one of those things. One of the newest company, the SKMM, we're very excited to engage with them. Especially some of the projects that we've been struggling with to try to address. Powwow grounds is something that has always been an issue ever since I got on council on trying to enhance and fix and enhance the powwow grounds. And so now we have an opportunity with SKMM, and I'm very impressed with Kyle and Christina on the work they've been doing and how they're going to engage this. And I really look forward to in the future with SKMM on creating a tribal workforce. That's one thing that's where everybody's really kind of focused on, creating jobs And, because that's one of the questions that's always asked with me about, SKT is, well, how many tribal members we got working there, you know? And I try to explain to them, you know, it's not the quantity, it's the quality of people that we need there. We just can't put anybody in any of these positions. That it's very imperative and important that we find and maintain and keep the right people for these jobs, because SKT wouldn't be where they're at today if we didn't, you know. So, but anyway, I just I'm always grateful for SKT, and like I said, I really look forward to seeing SKMM expand and grow. I think that's going to be one of the many companies that the membership will really appreciate once they see the work that they're going to be doing here in the coming years. And I also just want to mention too, Chad, so last week I had the opportunity to meet with some of the SKT staff in Las Vegas. We met with a company, an energy company over there that had a very interesting proposal. And I hope you guys can really take a long look at this. And I think it's something that we could benefit from. And I was very grateful for the SKT staff that showed up, because they were very professional. They were asking all the tough questions, and so I just look forward to seeing where that goes. But anyway, once again, thank you guys all for the work you guys do. We're very grateful for the board that we have. Geez, it's just ever since I've been on council, SKT has grown and grown, and I appreciate the work that you guys do.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Len. Any other comments or questions? Anybody? Well,
Then again, Mr. Chairman,
yeah, go ahead,
I'd
Bud.
like to invite all of you down, maybe not at the same time, but one at a time or two at a time, to our board meetings. We do this invitation. I've done the invitation about 8-9 years now, but once in a while we get a councilman down there. But we have a very good board meetings, and it's I think the councilperson could see what we're doing. But we always invite you down.
Thank you, Bud.
I'd love to see you. I think Carol came down once, Leonard, and when we'll let them know when we got some exciting actions to take, I guess.
Thank you, Bud. I too, like Lynn, is SK Technologies, what a wonderful success story for the tribes, and the income that you guys provide to us is so critical for us to fund governmental services. You know, we don't have a taxation. We're relying on you to support us to provide the services that our membership needs. So thinking outside the box, you know, breaking paradigms, whatever you need to do to be successful, you know, you'll have at least my support to do that, because the revenue is critical. And if we could expand it through any way, shape, or form, that's why I really look kind of like the SKMM opportunity, where we could take some of that outside funding that may have gone to other general contractors, where we could do that ourselves and bring that back and bring that additional potential revenue to us. And as Len talked about, there is an opportunity to maybe workforce development that you guys could be engaged in for local projects that are on the reservation that we seem to struggle with, you know, manning with a lot of our members from other tribes or our descendants. We really look forward to that relationship with you into the future. I have one question on your location, Chad. So you're renting that space in Polson. Is there any thought from you guys to acquire a location that you would own?
There's been several discussions over the years about what that is. We've been hesitant to jump into that, being that whatever cost that is passes on through our contracts to the government, and having too much expense in that category could price us out of certain contracts. And so we've been hesitant on what that is. We've had opportunities to buy that location, still do have an opportunity to buy that location. I've had several conversations with the owner of that, based on tax breaks that he could get at a lower price, different type of scenarios. It hasn't made perfect sense. We couldn't utilize that whole building. And so there would need to be others in the building, and no offense, but we're not skilled at the rental industry. We're skilled at a lot of things. That's just not one of them. And so
Bob might be.
Every time I say, when are we gonna buy this damn building?
See, there it is right there.
I mean, you know, occasionally you'll just see something that makes sense. You know, the views there, it really is something the tribe can use so many different ways. In 50 years, I mean, it's a unique property that complements this facility, I think. And I hate seeing those big checks, rent checks.
I despise rent checks. I just personally despise them. I think it's wasted money when you're paying rent to somebody else.
But Chad's exactly right. Because of the way our indirect and allowable expenses are figured, it's more nuanced than just common sense, you know?
But you own the St. Ignatius asset though.
that was purchased 2003.
Yeah, 20 years ago, yeah.
And so, but I think that it's probably incredibly appropriate to have a larger discussion about it, because I'm clearly looking at it from an SKT standpoint. You're looking at it from a CSKT standpoint. It may make sense to have a larger discussion, because if it doesn't from here, it may from there. In between us, it may make perfect sense.
Thank you, Chad. It's me personally. I just personally hate paying rent when I can own it and make that rent payment and then have that asset in the future. Go ahead, Carol.
You know, when I've been in that building a number of times, and I look at the view, and there is no place that we have that shows a view of the lake and the mountains, and then the land, I mean, the farmland. Maybe farmland wasn't the proper term, but it just shows everything that represents us as a people. And I think we should do what we can to try to purchase that. And if it takes the tribe to do it, I think maybe that's the way to go. We can certainly fill the office with the chairman and Lynn.
Well, is there any reason you couldn't?
No, I
stay?
doubt if they'll go. I doubt if they
Stay
would
there,
go,
right.
but you know what I mean? I just think there's other companies that could also use a corporate place and a location. So I just think it's an ideal, just because it views everything that we have. And I would like to see us get it.
With that, Councilwoman Langford, I'll look into setting up what that looks like, and so that I can brief the board and shareholder on. There's several options, and I've looked into them in the past. One, purchasing as SKT and dividending it. Two is what it looks like as an asset of SKT. Two is all of those type of, and as we go along. But with this, I will absolutely put together some of the baseline information to provide to the board of directors, and therefore they can take to council and shareholder on what are the options and what does that look like, and how does that work overall. Like I said, I think that the tribal council worked with Glacier Bank, and part of that was a cash and part of that was a tax ability for them. I think that there's creative options that may be available for us, that it isn't a pure cash opportunity. It could be, depending on that, it may not be SKT that would purchase it, because it may be, and we could put the cash forward, but all of those type of things. Those type of things I'll look into, and I will bring that to the board, and we will have further discussion.
Cool, that'd be great. Council okay with that? I had to bring it up because
How long did it take us to buy the bank finally? It took probably 12 years for us to go
Good. I think
back and forth.
yeah, it does take a while, Carol, you're right. I think what Chad's talking about is the creativity and thinking how you could put a package together like this. So it'd be a, right, you look at just, maybe it doesn't work out on a business sense, but when you really look at all the factors, the current owner and, what you could do, there's always a creative way to make it work or not. But
It's worth a discussion.
yeah. Good deal. Any other questions for folks? Well, you guys are doing a fantastic job. I want to thank you. Thank you. Bob, Kevin, Bud, Pete. Yep. Everybody. What a great crew. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. We got, oh yeah, we do. Online, we do. Yep. Motion by Carol to approve the S&K Technologies annual shareholder report. To accept it. Second by Martin. All those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Oh, Mike's out of the room.
Will you come out of shareholder and take a break?
Opening? The 20th, isn't it? When is the opening?
We'll move out of shareholders into regular session and we will take a break.
Thank you.
Right?
All right, we better, Ms. Carroll. Okay, we'll move into executive session for Jordan.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Rose Morja with CSKT NRD, Natural Resource Department. I'm just here to ask for a change of duty station for April 20th for the Earth Day cleanup of Highway 93 from mile marker 50 to 52 for the CSKT employees.
Wow, cool.
Short and to the point.
Motion by Carol, second by Jimmy to approve the change of duty station for the April 20th CSKT employee highway cleanup. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Well, unanimous of who's voting, a couple out of the room.
Okay, not much.
Thank
See
you.
you then.
Keep up the good work. Carrie.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Council. Thanks for having me here today. Carrie Kingery with the Tribal Wildlife Management Program. Oh, I didn't have it close enough. Sorry. I have a few things, items to present today, and I'll start off with a presentation. Oops. Is it okay to, how do I pull up the PowerPoint so that they can see it as well? And it's not on there, it's the PowerPoint is separate. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Oh, awesome, thank you. This one? Oh, okay. Awesome, thank you. I'll first start off with the first agenda item to present the draft for our chronic wasting disease surveillance and emergency response plan. Let me go ahead and start the presentation. Oh, down at the bottom. We're really excited to bring this draft in. We've been working on it for a while and it's gone through a few rounds of internal revisions, and so we wanted to present it to you guys today. We'll be bringing it to the Kootenai Culture Committee tomorrow, and then we reached out to the Salish Kootenai Culture Committee to present it to them as well, but haven't heard back from them. We have sent them a draft of this plan as well, so hopefully we'll be able to catch up with them soon. But I just want to start off and talk about what chronic wasting disease is. It's a fatal neurological disease that affects primarily elk, deer, and moose of the big game species. And it really attacks the nerve and causes brain damage, which eventually results in weight loss. Animals will be seen stumbling, they have a lack of coordination, they'll begin drooling, and then they have really droopy ears. And kind of because they have a lack of situational awareness, they lose a lack and fear of people. And so there is no known cure for chronic wasting disease. Once it enters a population, there hasn't been an effective way to eradicate it or remove it from a population. So once it's there, we maintain for low prevalence to help prevent risk or help prevent the risk of spread, and try to keep, the numbers or the prevalence of CWD in a herd as low as possible, but there's no known cure to remove it from a population once it's there. Another thing that is known about CWD is that it does have high transmission rates when you have populations of big game in really high densities, just because they're having, it's spreading a lot quicker. Currently, to date, there are no known documented cases of transmission from animal to human, though it's not an impossible transmission. So CWD is very similar to mad cow disease in how it affects the brain and the body. And so the CDC does recommend not eating meat from animals that have tested positive for chronic wasting disease. We also feel that tribal members may be at a higher risk of exposure because of the traditional and cultural uses of the animal parts. We use the brains, the hides, the antlers, the bones, the different pieces. That extra handling or exposure might put them at a higher risk of that transmission than those just consuming the meat. And so one thing for the last probably 5 or 6 years, we've really tried to put efforts out to educate hunters on CWD. And, we've provided testing options for hunters to bring in their harvested animals, and we send them off for sampling so that folks, are able to know whether or not their animals have CWD before consumption. And there are a few different ways that it spreads. It's a prion in the bodily fluids and the lymph nodes that last in the environment for up to 2 years. And it can spread through direct transmission from live animal to live animal, but it also can indirectly transfer from animals if an animal or carcass decomposes on the landscape. It travels any kind of fluid that gets into the soil or the grass, urine, saliva. It can get taken up by or on the grass. Then when a deer kind of moves through that area, even after decomposition for up to 2 years, if they're consuming grass in that area, they can still consume those prions through the environment. And so one thing we've really been stressing as well with tribal membership is carcass disposing. So we do see a lot of times carcasses kind of just put on the landscape, and that is one vector of transmission that we are concerned about. So if we look at this map here, it is the most current chronic wasting disease map from the state, from the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And so all of those lighter, smaller dots there are areas that samples have been collected and submitted from that came back negative. But then those larger orange, darker orange markers there indicate where positive results have come back positive for chronic wasting disease. And so again, once it's in a population, it's really difficult or if not impossible to fully eradicate it from the area. Again, because it stays in the environment for up to 2 years. And another factor is that it has a 16-month incubation period in the animal itself before it starts presenting symptoms. And so it's over a year that they're interacting with other animals in the herd, transmitting it and spreading it. So before you even see animals that are sick, it's already had over a year to infect the herd. So one of the best ways for early detection before your prevalence rate gets really high is for that early surveillance so that you can detect it as soon as possible on the landscape. And so one thing that this has caused in other areas are rapid population declines in big game populations. Some herds in Wyoming and Colorado have seen overall population declines of up to 45% of deer, and continue to see annual 10% declines each year in mortality due to CWD. And so some areas, not often, but some areas have seen local extinction of certain species until like the population stabilize and they move back into the area. But again, it's got that long life in the environment that it can persist in the ground. So the possibility of high spread rates, because we do have a high in certain areas of our certain wildlife management units on the reservation, we have higher densities of big game species, so it does have a risk of a high spread rate if it does reach our populations. And so these graphs here are just some kind of long-term data from our big game counts in just a handful of the wildlife management units. And you can see that over the years, deer and elk populations have increased in some areas. And so we do have that growth or that expansion. And then you can see in the Mission Valley on that bottom right, you know, that we do have over 2,000 white-tailed deer alone, just kind of west of the highway to the river there. And so we do in some areas have high densities of animals that could have that high transmission rate. So preventing spread really is we do have some areas in our Aboriginal hunting territories that are, you know, positive with CWD. And so the concern is those animals being brought back and then disposed, carcasses disposed of here that, you know, can spread it to the environment. That's what that point there was. And so then that we also, another potential vector is that we have some herds of deer and elk and other ungulates that have seasonal migration patterns where they're partially on the reservation and partially off for some parts of the year. And so they're interacting in some areas where they do have CWD positive herds and then coming back to the reservation in the fall and in the winter. And so that's another concern of transmission. Again, one thing that we've really been pushing, especially in areas, you know, animals that are harvested off reservation in some of these CWD positive areas, is to you know, leave the head and spine in the field, just bring the meat and then dispose of, you know, any unused parts in a Class 2 landfill for those off reservation harvests. So really briefly, in the plan that was provided in the packet goes in depth, but I'll try to give kind of a really quick overview of what our plan for surveillance and response would be. So we're going to continue testing symptomatic deer, elk, and moose, and then we really want to focus surveillance on deer and elk in these high priority areas. And I'll kind of walk through how we developed some of those high priority spots. And then we want to use a standardized point system to help detect prevalence of CWD on the landscape, as well as continue to offer free testing to tribal member hunters. And you'll see as we walk through this plan how important tribal member hunter samples are to us being able to detect it on the landscape. So deer species are more likely to have these higher transmission rates than elk or moose, and so we'll really focus in on them to begin with, looking at mule and white-tailed deer. And then we also have in some of our areas wildlife management units with high densities of elk. Those are herds that have high connectivity with off-reservation migration, and so those, yep.
So this just affects ungulates, it doesn't affect wolves or coyotes or bears?
Nope, it hasn't been seen to jump species through carnivores, no. So it's just primarily big game species, deer, elk, moose, hasn't been detected in bison or bighorn sheep. But I haven't heard anything on mountain goat, I would assume no. Nope, I haven't heard of it in antelope either. So it's mainly kind of focused in on both deer species, elk and moose. And then, so speaking of moose, our populations are pretty low. And so when it comes to sampling moose,
We're only going to be sampling opportunistically as hunters harvest them and bring them to us, because we don't want to contribute to any additive mortality out there with the moose that we do have. Just kind of some baseline of what our moose numbers are looking like historically. So this map here are different wildlife management units that the reservation is broken up and into, that we each year we kind of rotate which ones we survey for big game. And historically there were about 6 of these WMUs that we would consistently pick up 10 to 14 moose on each year. But for the last 2 years, there's only been 3 WMUs where we've actually detected moose. And for a total of 2 years, we've only had 6 total observations during those big game flight counts. And so we are seeing kind of a little decline in their populations. And so we're wanting to really, again, not have any additive mortalities as we think of chronic wasting disease. But we will continue to sample from symptomatic animals, hunter harvested and road killed, or any animals that we take administratively on depredation, big game depredation hunts or activities. And so really, so on this map here is those same wildlife management units, but the shaded ones are the areas that we're considering high priority. And that is because they have been identified to be within 40 miles of a known positive CWD harvest. And so what we're hoping to do is implement a weighted surveillance strategy that in each one of these wildlife management units, based on the population of deer and elk, we would create kind of a sample size that we would try to target for to determine with 95% confidence how many or whether or not CWD is on the landscape. And so using this weighted system, we'd be able to determine, you know, whether CWD is there or not. And so that doesn't necessarily mean, so let's just say, you know, each WMU is going to have their own sample size, but just for an example, if we say a certain unit needs 300 sample points, that doesn't mean 300 animals need sampled. With this weighted system, it means that, you know, a symptomatic mule deer that's female might give us 13 points versus a harvested female might give us only 0.5 points. So it would take quite a few harvested female mule deer to give us the same amount of points as a symptomatic mule deer. Similarly with the males there. And so technically we could get these sample size, weighted sample sizes with smaller animals. But again, we'd need, and each WMU's sample size goal would be determined based off of the herds and herd sizes that are in there. Some of the concerns that we might encounter, so the sample sizes are specific to each species. So, you know, like let's say we had an area with elk, moose, or no, whitetail mule deer and elk, each species would need to have 300 points. It's not, you know, overall big game in an area, but it's species specific. And so really our surveillance efforts are really gonna rely on tribal member harvested samples to help us get to some of those target surveillance sample sizes. And it's been difficult to engage tribal hunters in the past. You know, we've, I think for at least 8 to 10 years have offered free CWD testing to tribal member hunters, and we haven't had a lot of success in it. In 2021, we only had one hunter who would bring us animals that they would harvest. And so last year we did a really concerted effort, did a kind of a raffle incentive for hunters to supply them. We did some, what do you call them? Hunter check stations. But we, you know, had less than 10 hunters that would bring in animals, and they would bring in, you know, multiple animals, but there weren't a lot of, it wasn't a good representation of the membership hunters. And so really being able to tap into our tribal member hunters to be able to work with us in collecting those samples is going to be really important to being able to detect it on the landscape.
Were you picking up many samples from the highway?
We do, yep. And road killed animals do, because
deer or ungulates that are hit on the highway do tend to be thicker often. And so they do weight a little bit higher. So we do, especially on the main roads, 93, the kind of major highways, we do work with the game wardens and collecting samples there.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Thank you. Being a hunter, you spend the day harvesting an animal and you get it home, you hang it up. The last thing you want to do is then put it back in your truck and drive up to some check station. So what parts need to be extracted from the animal, and you can probably throw them in a freezer and then drop them off?
Yeah, so this last year we did put together and assemble some CWD sampling test kits so that hunters could pick them up, bring them with them in the field. It's just a small lymph node kind of in the neck there. So, you know, we've got kits that have kind of instructions on how to pull the sample if hunters wanted to do that in the field and then just drop them off. And then also, you know, we've been letting folks know that if they just bring us the head, the upper portion of the neck and head, and just bring us that portion, then we'll be able to pull the sample and then discard it as well. So they don't have to bring in, a whole carcass, which is a good point. Yeah. Let's see. So then kind of moving on into the response portion of the plan, if it were to be detected within the reservation, you know, how we would respond to that. And it would kind of go in a couple of different phases, but that first is the initial response, defining that prevalence in a new area. So we define initial response area, and what that would look like is like, let's say this little orange dot, on the screen is where we had a positive sample come back. So we would immediately kind of designate a 10-mile area radius around that detection. And then using geological, like landscape features, roads, highways, ridges, we would kind of give it like a more definitive boundary, and we'd kind of call that our immediate response area. And so we would, at all the major access points, put some signs up to let hunters know that if they're harvesting beyond that point, there, you know, is a potential for chronic wasting disease in the herd. And then we have our information there on how to get a hold of us for testing. And then within that area, we would do some additional population flights to get estimated better herd size estimations, distribution of age, class, and sex ratios, and that would help us to determine, because it determined the prevalence.
So Carrie, if that was an elk in that spot there on your map, it seems to me like I would probably want to do the entire Salish range, but that's just me.
Yeah, so then the next part is looking at, so we would have that immediate response area, but then we'd also have a chronic wasting disease management zone that, you know, we would kind of have that larger boundary. And yeah, it would make sense at that point, because it's all going to be kind of case by case, you know, where the detections come from to determine that larger CWD management zone. And so within those larger areas, that's where when we communicate with the public and with membership, that we would let them know that animals coming from this area have tested positive, so that they kind of have that overall awareness in that larger area. And then once we kind of define all those boundaries, the next priority is to determine prevalence. And so this is a different calculation than that weighted system before. Biologists would use kind of the more fine scale data, like herd demographic data, to figure out new sample sizes that are going to estimate how prevalent CWD is. So the first weighted estimate is looking at, you know, is it on the landscape? And then if you determine it is, this is a different set of calculations that help us determine how prevalent is it. And let's see. And again, we would use kind of samples from hunter harvest or administrative harvest, and continue to use roadkill to kind of get at some of those samplings.
If you have a positive hit, there's another question for you. I mean, sorry, maybe I have this covered in your plan.
Oh no, please.
Is there something you go right to the meat cutters and let them know?
Yeah, so we've
tried this year also to reach out and expand to the local meat cutters to see if they can pull samples there for us. And so hopefully that'll be an avenue in the future to help like collect more samples, but that would definitely be something we would do in that kind of initial outreach, is to let folks know that it is here, because there are in some areas that have in Montana that have CWD positive, the meat cutters won't take meat. And so they don't seem as concerned about that locally, but you know, it might change once CWD comes here. And so that would be part of, I think, yeah, that outreach. And I didn't put it in here, but I think it was in the plan draft in the packet, that part of the outreach portion of that would definitely be that communication. And so another phase, potential phase, would be, you know, if CWD shows a high prevalence in a particular area, when we start calculating some of those measurements, there's a possibility that we could utilize special CWD hunts. And so these would be, you know, special temporary regulations, rules, or reporting requirements for hunters within certain that emergency response area. And so we would kind of coordinate that and work with you guys for approval on initiating any special hunts. And so some of the things that these special hunts could include are transport and carcass disposal restrictions. You know, it could be leaving a head and spine in the field in certain areas, or having them disposed in a class 2 landfill. We would implement hunter check stations for tribal members to stop at, so that we can pull, you know, samples as they're coming out. And then some of them, depending on the density of big game in that area, it might be designating doe, cow, or buck bull harvest only areas for certain seasons, just to help reach some of those sample size needs, because males and females rate differently on a weighted system. And so if we need more males or more females, that would help us hit those targets. But also if it's an area with high density, it might help us bring the populations down to a level where CWD would be more manageable for that area. And then within those CWD hunts, there would be mandatory sampling for hunters in there. And one thing that we would really have to communicate is, you know, we have to know where the animals are harvested. So last year we did have some issues with some samples that were submitted, but hunters didn't want to tell us where they harvested them. And so from a management standpoint, if it were to come back positive, we wouldn't even know where to start looking or what herd that those animals came from. And so we would need, you know, kind of to work with hunters and have them be willing to give that information, at least drainage based, so that we know kind of where to look and what herds to assess. And again, you know, important to note that these special CWD hunts aren't necessary for every outbreak. It's only in areas where we might have really high densities or are having issues reaching those sample size measurements. And then any of the hunting restrictions, you know, these are all just a suite of what could be implemented, but they would all be tailored directly to the sample size needs, and then the sample distribution for that area. And so here's kind of an example of what, you know, in addition to those earlier signs, you know, if there were to be a special CWD hunt, we definitely have that posted in the area, and then kind of coordinate that with our outreach and social media outlets as well, to, and probably put on some more kind of community presentations just to get information out to folks. And then, you know, again, once we've determined prevalence, we try to keep that down below 5%. So again, it's one of those things that if it were detected, we're looking at long-term monitoring. You know, there's no real way to eradicate it from the system once it's there. And so, you know, it may be necessary to reduce some herd densities or to modify age or sex structure in certain units, just to kind of help keep the risk of transmission low, keep it from transmitting to new areas or other populations. And then let's see, again, hunter harvesting samples will kind of be the main method in the long term, in that long-term phase of, detecting prevalence, out there. And yeah, that was really quick. Yeah, Terry?
Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, thank you. If I remember right, I thought they collared some of those elk and they migrate clear to Whitefish and Eureka.
Mhm.
So if they have an outbreak up in those areas, be nice to have a heads up because they'll come back in winter back here.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's definitely, those areas, those herds utilize, they are in that, high priority map. They're definitely listed as an area that we'd be watching pretty closely, because we do know that those are areas that have herds that travel on and off and are relatively, within that 40-mile radius of an already positive area. But yeah, we did have data that indicated they do move on and off up there for sure.
I just forwarded you an email from APHIS for a $12 million grant notice. So there's additional funding. If you haven't put in for that, you might be able to think about getting that.
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. And we did, this plan and our kind of efforts last year and this year were funded by APHIS. And so we're hoping to keep that going, especially, if we do need to start increasing sampling efforts. But so this is a draft version, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to kind of answer them the best that I can. And then we're hoping to put it out for a public comment period for the membership and everyone to look at and read before we bring it back.
Go ahead, Carol.
I just want to say I appreciate you presentation because it's really been on my mind since Terry and Mike, were talking about it, and I'm glad that you updated us, and it's going to be on the forefront of our concerns.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Thank you again. Yeah, same thing. I appreciate the effort here. I almost have the feeling that even if it's not here today, it's going to eventually come. It's spreading the way it's spreading all through the state. And I think the people need to be made aware that you want to make sure that you're vigilant and involved, because we're going to eventually see some test positives, I think, in this area.
Yeah, and that's why we are really excited to have a plan, a direction for, when we do have those detections, that we do have a plan in place that will help us address them. And yeah, a big concern from our point is, if we do see, reduction in herd populations due to mortality, that's food sovereignty and tribal members that are affected. And so we really want to, work with and engage them as much as possible to let them know about CWD, just the safety aspects of it and the food sovereignty portion as well. So we're really glad to be having a plan going that will help us in those instances for sure.
I've often worried about ducks. They're kind of a dirty animal and they feed off the grasses and stuff like that, that they could transmit it to an area after, because they'll get in and work on feces and stuff, and then they fly to the next county or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on birds or ducks being a transmitter. I haven't heard it jumping species, so that's but that's definitely something I'll look into as well, just to see if there is research out there on that for sure.
Well, good job. Be good to see what the comment is with it. I believe Terry's correct. It's inevitable. We'll get this way. The other one that's a creep is the brucellosis in the elk coming out of the greater Yellowstone, and they've now bumped over our containment zone there in a couple spots, and they're picking up brucellosis in the dogs and Billings. So that's not a good thing. Need any particular action for us?
I think just approval to be able to go forward with the comment period.
Motion by Carol, second by Terry. further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving forward with the chronic waste scene surveillance response plan? Unanimous.
Thank you very much. I will move on to the next portion, and these ones should be pretty quick. Oh, I'll try to move down. Sorry, that was a long plan. Okay, so we did conclude the 30-day comment period for the 23-24 pheasant, gray partridge, and migratory waterfowl hunting season. We had one comment that was submitted on youth hunting and requesting the ability for youth hunting during that special waterfowl weekend to be excluded from the CSKT licensing. And so we did let them know that children under 12 don't need for that for waterfowl hunting and upland game bird hunting. If they're under 12, that the way the regulations are now, they don't have to have that duck stamp or that CSKT license or the waterfowl license. But that was the only comment that we received on that. And let's see, oh, that was too far. But so with the waterfowl regulations, they're just approval on the final draft, so we can go forward with printing on those.
Motion by Carol to approve the final draft for the 23-24 upland bird and waterfowl regulations. Second by Len. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous.
Excellent, thank you very much. I'll move on into the next portion. So we do have, and for some reason, I uploaded kind of our tracked changes version, so it should have shown red in all of the changes we made this year, but it didn't come up that way. And so, so we have some of our other seasonal member regulations that really I just updated to fit the same verbiage from the larger member regulation books. And so I was really trying to standardize the form and look of all of these so that, tribal member hunters would know, or recognize when they looked at some regulations, or would know what to look for when they were going in for regulations. Because they were all kind of in different formats. Some of them were just a single sheet of paper. So I really wanted to make sure that we standardized the look and the language in all of them as well to match up with the member regulations. And so these ones, the Berry Basin elk harvest season and regulations, the biggest changes was in the past, we would put in this harvest quota area, the amounts, usually the cow elk, those we set later in the fall or later in the summer. But in order to kind of get all the regulations kind of through and updated and available for members, we were hoping to kind of leave that vague and just set that, the harvest quotas for bull elk and for, the sheep would be determined, at our later season meeting. But then at least that way, if folks were interested to know how to enter the drawing or know what the boundaries were, they could still pick up these regulations any time of the year and that they'd be applicable, and know that, it's a permitted hunting in Ferry Basin for bull elk. So they'd have all that information, but they'd be able to get it ahead of time. And so see, the only thing that was different in these in these years than previous years was we, in this bull elk permit required, we changed the language. There was some confusion from tribal members on whether or not if they had a Ferry Basin elk tag, if they harvested a doe or a cow, if that filled their bull elk tag. So we put language in there that just clarified that there isn't a quota for cow elk. So if you have a bull elk tag and you get a cow elk, you still have the opportunity to fill that. That cow elk hasn't filled your bull elk tag. Because we did have some questions on that last year. And then, let's see,
Terry, what was the population count for Berry Basin?
oh golly, it was on that graph. It was, I believe, about 1,200. And so it's getting up there. But it is also the time, we do the surveys in the winter. And so that is when we do have some of the off-reservation populations that come for those wintering grounds. And so they do disperse a bit more throughout the year, but our winter populations, they are a bit larger. And then the only other real kind of language change was the transfer of elk permit to just emphasize the elder and handicap for the transfer of elk permits for elder and handicap, but the just kind of standardizing that process so that folks knew how to transfer those permits. And then we included at the end the bear aware message and let them know about the bear spray program that we have as well, so that if they're out hunting, they can pick up bear spray. And then we did include the same language that we put in the member regulations this year on chronic wasting disease, to kind of let folks know about disposal and testing. And so we're hoping to put these out for public comment for folks to look at and get comments back to us by.
Any questions on those? Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair. Not talking about the Ferry Basin, those special hunt areas, but when you have the cow season starts September 1st, I'd like to have some consideration of moving it back at least to the middle of August, because I've had calls from ranchers that have high numbers of elk on their places. And I tell them, but I can't shoot any cows, and it doesn't make any sense to go in there and shoot a bull, because the cow I usually will take is you actually, when you shoot a cow, you're taking the cow plus the calf that she would be producing the following year. And so it is an issue. And in August, it gets pretty hot and dry. And so those elk come out and they get into those hay fields for those third cuttings, alfalfa especially. And they just really do a lot of damage to the fences and stuff. But, you know, I would like to at least be considered to be able to go in there at least a couple of weeks. That's my personal feeling in August.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely jotted that down, and that's something that, yeah, we'll definitely talk about, because we are looking at ways at alleviating some of those depredation needs and concerns in some of those areas. There are a few that we get some high reports from, and that's definitely one of them. So that could definitely be a strategy.
Yeah, it could be you just set that specific site up and have an administrative hunter pool that you call people to go take out what Terry's talking about, just that extra harassment. You know, again, it's a difficult time to be harvesting animals, and so it would take a special person with quick gear to be able to make sure they don't lose any meat if they're successful. Because you see, even the action would help some of that elk candy issue with the alfalfa fields.
And we are working a bit closer this year with the food sovereignty program on sending, you know, a few tribal member hunters or some administrative harvest to some of those high depredation areas, and then, you know, donating the meat to those programs. So we're hoping to be able to respond a little bit either with members or with the program as well. So yeah, hopefully we can get at some of that.
Yeah, that might fit that particular issue very well also. Just, yeah, food sovereignty. Council, you need council approval to put it out for comment?
I think so, right? To be able to put them out or approve them to go out to public comment.
Yeah. Motion by Jimmy to approve. Nope. Oh, well, that's when we take action to have it put out for comment period. Me to approve a public comment period for the Prairie Basin elk season and regulations for 23-24. Second by Carol. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. And then next we have the bighorn sheep regulations. Again, this is another permitted hunt, but we wanted to be able to have the process for applying the permit drawing and everything out for folks so that if they were interested in applying, they would know what the rules and regulations are for that hunt. And a lot of the language came right out of the member regulations. Let's see, again, this is one where the harvest quota isn't in these regulations because those are set and determined after our spring bighorn sheep counts for that Little Money and Perma area. Let's see. Other than that, a lot of the language on the general hunt, the chronic wasting disease, and then the permit transfers all kind of match with what's in the regulations and then what was presented in the elk regulations also. And again, CWD hasn't been detected in bighorn sheep, but we did put it in there just to kind of another reminder of CWD when we're thinking about big game. And so this is another set of regulations that we hope to put out to the public as well for that public comment period.
Any questions about the bighorn sheep? Do the same, get public comment period. Motion by Len to approve the draft bighorn sheep season and regulations for 23-24 for public comment. Second by Jimmy. Is that your head? That's your head move? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. Up next, we have the moose harvest regulations. And this really was really just fits with what's in the member regulations and specifies kind of the off-reservation moose hunting district closures. So there are some areas, I think the last page map, the state has some areas bordering the reservation closed to hunting. And in the past, council has, nope, that was for females. So in the past, we've asked hunters to not hunt moose from those grayed out districts there, just because the populations of moose there have been really low, that they're worried about local extinction. And so we're hoping to kind of continue to work with them on that. So there's just a little disclaimer on the bottom of page 1 that, you know, asks to not harvest moose from those hunting districts, and then just go through the process of how to get a moose permit and you know, the different things that come right out of the member regulations. And I think we added a thing on chronic wasting disease and then be bear aware as well to put more information out there on that bear spray program.
Any questions for Terry? This would be the 23-24 moose hunting regulations.
Motion, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Martin to put out the moose hunting regulations, draft moose hunting regulations for public comment. Second by Carol. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor? Unanimous?
Awesome. And I think I've just got one more, or I guess 2, sorry. The next is our gray wolf hunting and trapping season. The only thing that's different this year from previous years is the dates for the wolf trapping instruction class requirement. We have those down as August 29th and August 31st. And then, you know, hunters are also able to, if they're not able to attend those 2 dates, they can take the online version with the state trapping, and that qualifies them, or that fulfills that class requirement there. But
These regulations are for off reservation too.
correct, yep.
Harry, how many wolves were harvested last year?
So it's really low. You know, typically we have between 2 to 5 harvests. Usually they're all within the reservation. Last year we didn't have any. So we do have quite a few tickets or permits that go out, but not many of them are filled. And we don't get a lot of response back on the submission of, you know, non-filled tickets. So that is one thing that we're asking in these regulations, is that folks, in order to get the next year's permit, even if they don't fill a permit, to return that, because there's a little questionnaire that's really helpful of, did you hunt? You know, because if you didn't hunt and didn't see an animal, or fill it, you know, that's very different information than, yeah, I hunted, you know, 120 days and didn't see a moose or didn't see a wolf. And so that really helps us, helps get us information that, on kind of hunter success and key into to hunting or animals on the landscape. And so we are asking that kind of build that relationship with hunters so that they're, you know, get used to coming back and kind of, you know, working with us on that. And I really think that'll help kind of build that reciprocity towards working together on CWD as well. But yeah, here are our wolf management zones. And then we do have different harvest dates for the different zones. And they typically usually come out of the mission zone there.
Has there been any recent harvests with trapping then, or is it not?
Nope,
None?
we didn't have any last year.
Have we had any ever?
I haven't had one turned in for trapping, usually
Well, that's
just.
good.
Yeah.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do know that, question whether it's even legal, but non-members from like Plains come up and trap in the Hot Springs area on private ground, and I've seen pictures that they have taken wolves. And it'd be nice if they at least respond that they did collect them.
I'm sorry, I might not have heard the first part of that correctly. Members going down into Plains or non-members? Oh, okay. Yeah, and that definitely, yeah, if we don't have that data, that doesn't help our database either. Yeah, I have heard with coyotes that that's been an issue. And so, yeah, we've been working with wildlife services in the state on trying to just really outreach, you know, with folks. Coyotes have been an issue because there isn't a season for them per se. So that's kind of been a gray area, but with wolves, that's definitely happening. There's a hunting season for the state for wolves. So there could be, I would think, investigation on the state warden side that they might have some repercussions for that.
Any questions on the 23-24 draft great wolf trapping and harvest regulations? These need to go out for public comment also. Approval for that.
Correct, yep.
Motion by Len to approve the 23-24 great wolf trapping and harvest regulations for public comment. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? I think it's unanimous. Okay.
Alrighty, and then the final one I had was the off-reservation or the Yellowstone bison hunt regulations, but I might hold off on that one just because we have had some discussion on it that we might want to iron out some of the details on before putting that one forward for public comment. So I might hold off on presenting that one because that one I don't think is ready for public comment yet.
I would also wait, Carrie, until we have our all-party hunt meeting in May.
Yeah, and that was part of the discussion was we'll be meeting then and be able to talk about some of that. So yeah, we'll hold off on that one. And so I can move to the collection permit portion. On page 318 on your packet, we have a collection permit from the Intermountain Bird Observatory. These guys had a collection permit last year as well. They did the kind of grid survey for birds in the Jocko area. And I believe I might not have included the map on there. But it was an area that, you know, was not within the primitive area. Oh, there it is. I think maybe she might have had another one down below. Nope. Okay. Yeah, it's just kind of a 16-point survey where they stopped and listened for birds at each section. And then we did get a report last year of all the species that they did detect at that site. So it was pretty good information that, you know, would be great to continue collecting as well. And so there's a collection permit to continue that this May and July. And it's just a single visit, but it would occur between May and July.
Motion by Carol to approve the scientific collection permit for Intermountain Bird Observatory. Second by Len. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And then the next one is for the university in Idaho. So this is a new one this year. They are hoping to collect information on migratory birds to help kind of a regional project on shorebird migration. And so they're proposing to do a one-time or two surveys this year between once in April, once in August, at the reservoir, the Pablo Reservoir, Nine Pipes Wildlife Reservoir, to kind of just walk the shore and it looks like Ducharme Point and Elmo Bay as well. Just kind of walk the shoreline and then not monitor, but record the different species of shorebirds that are present during those times to help capture information on that migration. And so they would be using volunteers out of Missoula. And I did let them know about the, for the Ducharme Point in the Elmo Bay area, if they're accessing tribal lands, that they would need the collection permit. Or is that the collection permit, the CSKT recreation permit? There we go.
Terry, motion? Motion to approve the Boise State University bird survey for this summer. Is there a second? Second by Mike. Any further questions? All those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Go ahead, Len.
Perry, there's always been concerns about allowing people into Elmo Bay. So I would suggest that when they do come in, if they can check in with the Kootenai Culture Committee and perhaps having a staff person with them. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, I'll definitely let them know. And they might even be able to take that one off their list too, if there's access issues there. And then I did have one more come in. I didn't know if I could sneak it on since I was here.
Well, we're not meeting Thursday, so go ahead.
Okay. So this is another one continuing from last year on a small mammal survey study down along the river down by Buffalo Bridge. They had a collection permit for last year. They came and collected data, and so they're hoping to continue that research project for this year. And so they would just need to come up.
Was that the hantavirus?
Yep, that's the one.
And so I think they're getting ready to finish a thesis on it, so we should be
It's been
getting.
going on for quite a few years, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
So
study. Motion by Len to approve the small mammal survey near Buffalo Bridge on tribal lands. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Carrie, one thing before you leave.
yeah.
For the July quarterly, we were wondering, at least I was wondering if you couldn't line up a bear spray demonstration.
Oh,
And then also if you have any bear spray available at discount or free, would make that offering.
yeah.
And then also maybe demo your bear-proof trash can receptacles.
Ooh, that'd be perfect.
And anything else you might do to do public awareness.
Yeah, no, we would be happy to.
Oh, I know, you could promote your your cider event. in the
Oh,
fall.
bear and apple cider. Yeah,
Yeah.
the fruit cleaning program. Yeah. No, that's perfect. We would love that opportunity.
Because it's nice outside and people could go outside and, show them how to use that can.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's huge that people being able to dispense bear spray because
Oh, yeah,
it has a kick. If you're not expecting it, might
Yeah.
surprise you.
that's right.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put that on the calendar.
Oh,
and
cool.
we'll
Thank
get
you.
that. So, thank you.
Get that, Jen? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Carrie, I walk around SKC a lot, throwing round pieces of plastic, and I've been noticing there's a weird amount of dead birds over there. And I know there's normal, like, there's an owl, big owl, there's a big eagle, but these seem like more than the last couple of years. So I told Steph that I would let you know. So I apologize for not being there, but I just want to make sure maybe you guys I could kind of let you guys know if you want to more detail exactly where. But if you follow where there's a bunch of baskets and places, they're kind of along those trails. There's a disc golf course is what I'm trying to say. I go there and play a lot.
And I missed where the location of that was.
SKC,
Oh, in those
kind of
ponds.
around, definitely around the pond area.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely look into that and make sure there isn't like a pollution or a point source issue back there. And if there are birds, we can definitely test them for avian influenza as well. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. We've been waiting a while there, Leslie. Come on up. Yep, good job. Hello.
Good afternoon. Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the honor of speaking to you this afternoon. Philip, you know Leslie well, I'm sure. We represent the Arley Rehabilitation Center along with Emily, who is sitting behind us there. She's on our board of directors. Our president, Myrna Dumontier, unfortunately, she is not able to be with us here today. She's got classes she's doing at the schools. And I have to apologize. I'm going to try to be really succinct because I have a sick daughter and I wasn't quite expecting to be here quite so late. So I have kind of a backstop and I'm going to have to speak quickly and cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. But I am the director at the Arley Rehabilitation Center, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come and share a few things with you really quickly. Just for those of you who might, last we spoke to the council was a long time ago. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows just the very basics. We serve the Flathead Indian Reservation, providing a sanctuary where animals heal people and people heal animals. Our mission is as much about the people of this reservation and the communities, and especially the indigenous communities, and trauma impacted people of the reservation, as it is about animals. When people meet me, they often say, "Hey, it's the dog guy," and I'm quick to remind them that no, I'm not the dog guy. Yes, we do work with animals because we find that when animals and people come together, it's a powerful opportunity for healing, and there's a lot of need for that in our communities. And it goes both ways. Yes, we do work with animals in the sense of trying to address neglected, abused, and abandoned animals in our midst, and help people with those challenges. But those challenges are challenges that are felt by the families and by the neighborhoods. And then, of course, we provide healing. And the best example of that for people, healing for people, the best example of that, of course, so far has been our summer camps, our positively healing summer camps that we've offered now for 2 summers in a row. And we're going to be doing again this year in June in Arley at the Brown Building, where we bring trauma impacted kids and animals together. So just a really quick overview. This last year, 2022, we offered 2 summer camps. We grew very quickly. We're still very young. We're really only a couple years old. We launched our very first programs in the summer of 2021, the previous year. So we're very young, but we helped the community with in excess of 150 animals this past year, which might not seem like a lot, but for us being such a small organization, it's quite a lot. We did 100 adoptions. One major case that we helped with was a family that lives near Kicking Horse, and we ended up having to help them with 77 dogs that would have very quickly turned into probably 300 dogs had we not stepped in. And a big part of the reason why we're doing more and more of that kind of thing is because the Mission Valley Animal Shelter, as some of you may be aware, has kind of stepped back and curtailed some of their services, especially in the southern part of the reservation and south from Ronan. So more and more the community is desperate, and there are a lot of challenges, and they're turning to us. They're calling us. And unfortunately, we are often in a position where it's difficult for us to help because we are a foster-based organization at this point. One of the things I wanted to briefly mention here today, I'll speak about it in a couple minutes here, is we're hoping to have a healing site eventually, which would massively increase our ability to actually help the people who are in crisis, who are calling us on almost a daily basis saying, we need your help with an animal, or we need your help with this crisis that we have. Our neighbor is struggling with 10 animals, or whatever the case may be. And so we're doing spay neuter, and we're offering as many services as we possibly can, but our resources and our capacity are somewhat limited. So that is really the main issue that we face, and it's not really us as an organization. The issue is faced by our communities throughout the reservation here, and the only reason we exist is because there's this vacuum, and we're trying to help. And so ideally, someday, we would be able to get to the point where we would no longer need to exist. But right now, there's a lot of crisis, and it involves a variety of things, including kids and families suffering when their animals get killed, either shot or run over by cars. We've got massive overpopulation of dogs in certain areas. Cats, I'm not even mentioning cats, but it's kind of pockets. There's certainly Pablo is a high density area for dogs currently, and it's causing issues of disease spread. It's causing issues of dogs getting run over, etc. And then we have issues of, like I said, disease. We've got parvo, and this season has been particularly challenging with parvo. There have been quite a few cases in a number of communities. We had 3 internally for us, and we unfortunately, they survived, all 3 of them, but we had to pay a lot of money to get that taken care of. Luckily, we're taking that out of the population, so we're helping by removing it and minimizing the risks. We have a foster-based network. We don't have a facility where we concentrate a lot of animals. So in a way, that's actually a benefit. It minimizes the risk of spread. And there are other diseases that are coming down the pike. Brucellosis was mentioned earlier today in a very different context, but you may be aware that statewide right now, there is a scare of canine brucellosis, Brucellosis canis, which is a very new thing and very few people are aware of it. It is spreading, just like some of the diseases that were talked about in the wildlife presentation earlier. And we now have, for the first time, I think, 3 cases that have been confirmed in Lake County. It's more prevalent on the eastern side of the state currently, Billings and Bozeman, but it's moving in our direction. The concern about that disease and the reason why there's a lot of talk about it in Helena and kind of a bit of a panic is because it is a zoonotic disease. In very, very rare circumstances, it can be passed from dog to human. And for that reason, the state biologists have recommended that if there's a positive case of brucellosis confirmed at a dog, for a dog, it is either quarantined for life, which is practically impossible, or euthanized, even if the animal has no symptoms and may actually not have any symptoms if it were allowed to be to live. Sometimes they don't develop symptoms, but it's a matter of spread. It's a matter of containment at this point. It creates massive challenges for organizations that work with animals, not only nonprofits, but also veterinary clinics, for instance. So there's a clinic down in the Bitter right now who has changed its policies because of a case that they dealt with. And they will not spay and neuter animals coming off the reservation anymore unless there's a negative result that has been confirmed prior. That's a major challenge because it causes delays. These tests have to be sent out to Bozeman, and it takes a week for them to return. In the meantime, we have our hands tied and we have costs that we incur and we have time that passes. And so there are a lot of really open questions as to where this goes, but one of the main worries for organizations such as ours, as well as traditional shelters, is that currently, if any of these kind of limitations on what we can do are imposed, what's going to happen is we're going to become less available. And what's going to happen is in the meantime, more and more animals are going to be breeding, and that's just going to increase the likelihood of brucellosis spreading among the population without it being even known. So I'm just mentioning this. I'm not necessarily here with answers or here to say that this or something else should be done. The reason I'm mentioning it is because it is one of a suite of different challenges that our community is facing, and it all comes down to the number of animals, especially the number of non-spayed, non-neutered animals, right? And so that's one of the big reasons why one of our focus areas is spay-neuter. So I just wanted to share that on the 29th and 30th of this month, as has been already announced in the Charcusta, we are offering a spay-neuter clinic right here at SKC across the highway. We're going to try to do as many animals as we possibly can over the course of 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. We have vets and vet techs coming from a variety of areas around the western part of the state to help us with this. We partner with Spay Montana. It's a lot of work. We have to recruit a ton of volunteers. We have to do a lot of preparation and planning. And it's fairly costly, although it's much less expensive than, well, because of the funding Spay Montana provides through grants and different things like that. It's obviously less expensive than it would be if we did it privately. We're trying to do 200 animals over the course of those 2 days. If we were to achieve that, that's probably about $40,000 roughly in services offered free of charge to reservation residents. And that's our goal. In 2022, we raised $168,000 through our nonprofit. The previous year, we had raised 50,000. So it kind of shows the quick growth of our organization. We spent about 138,000 of that primarily on the camps and the spay neuter work and the animal rescue work that we did, including, for instance, helping low-income residents who call us with emergencies and say, our dog just got hit by a car, our kids are crying, we don't know what to do, we have no money to help the animal and it's suffering and can you help us? So we step in and we support those families. So we're trying to mitigate some of the trauma that's happening within the communities because of the overpopulation of dogs, but also poverty. And of course, all of the social and socioeconomic context of that. The spay neuter clinic, we're, like I said, end of this month, but then we have the plan to do a second one in September 9th and 10th. So 2 big clinics this year, and a whole lot of other spay neuter work on a routine basis, week to week throughout the year, in addition on top of that. Last year, we spayed and neutered, I think, roughly about 125 animals. We hope to do a lot more than that this year. And a lot of those were community animals for low-income families that couldn't afford to do it themselves. So that's one thing that we're focused on this year. Then the other thing, of course, like I said, we have a summer camp that's going to be offered between June 12th and 18th down in Arlee at the Brown Building. And we are once again bringing animals and people together for healing there. One of our biggest goals this year is hopefully to identify that healing site. A fairly long time ago, gosh, it's well over a year ago at this point, we presented at the council, and at that time, we were instructed to work with the lands department to identify a tribal trust piece of land where we could kind of set roots and establish something simple, create a village, a healing village where we could bring the people and animals together. It would serve multiple purposes, including an area where we could hold animals. And one of the biggest challenges we face now as a foster network is if a family or a person calls us with a serious emergency with an animal and says, we need your help today, we often can't do that. We have to say, we're so sorry. It's going to take us a few days to find a foster placement for this animal. And sometimes these situations are really dire. Having a place where we could put animals and collaborate with the tribes on helping the indigenous communities with their animals would make a massive difference in our ability to step in and not tell people, no, we can't help you, but rather say, yes, we can right away. That has been a massive stress and challenge, and for many reasons, that has been kind of an ongoing thing for us. And so we're really hoping that evolves. We are working with the lands department and Tara and Mark. There was actually a lease application that we submitted about a year ago, actually, for a site across from Nakusum in the Jocko Valley. Unfortunately, we were instructed to kind of wait for the process to run its course in the committee. That took quite a few months, and eventually, actually, third hand, I found out that lease was granted to somebody else for a different purpose, which in the end, that may be what needed to happen, and it might be for the best in the long run. However, in the meantime, we have our hands tied often in terms of being able to help people, and our biggest concern is just we don't want to tell people we can't help you. That's not what we're about. So the sooner we can kind of figure that process out, the better. And in that interest, Myrna and I drove around and talked quite a bit recently, and we identified a few other places where we could potentially look. We've already talked to Tara about that. We hope that if we submit an application soon, that maybe the process will run a little differently. But there is a site on the north end of the Jocko Valley where we're looking at maybe it was a former ranch house. The land was purchased by the tribes some time ago. It's kind of right near the dump, actually, where the right there before you go into the canyon heading toward Ravalli, on North Valley Creek, off of North Valley Creek Road. And so I just want I just wanted to kind of inform you of kind of the history of that process. And we will be continuing to work on that, and hopefully, we will find a way forward so that we can help the community better, and identify a place where we can set up a healing village. That would essentially entail a teepee village, some tiny home units where people and animals could come together for therapy and healing, as well as a place where we could actually hold camps on that site rather than renting the brown building for children, and create some kind of simple facility, hopefully very light on the land, where we could provide services throughout the year for kids and for adults for healing, people who are dealing with trauma. That's the goal. That's the vision. We don't want some kind of huge fancy building. That's not part of our healing philosophy. That's not part of our values. But we feel like we need something. That is a big part of our goal this year as well. So spay neuter clinics, 2 of them, summer camp in June, and trying to figure out how to move forward with that so that we can help more people more quickly. The last thing I'll mention really quickly is that we, as a nonprofit organization, 501c3, unfortunately, a lot of our work is to try to raise money because we can't help people. Vet costs, for one, are just super expensive. So we work as much as possible with vets that will honor the work that we're doing and give us huge discounts. But at the same time, there's still emergencies all the time. So we are participating for the 3rd year in a row in Missoula Gives. It's a big campaign. This year it falls on May 4th and 5th. It actually extends for about 3 to 4 weeks, but that's kind of the focus of it. Lots of nonprofits participate. We participated for the first time we participated, we were brand new. Nobody knew us. We were essentially a month old, and we raised, I think, like $3,500. The following year, we raised $14,000. Last year, we raised $24,000. And we were actually from among the 175 participating nonprofits, or 180, we were 9th, which is insane given the fact that we're so new. But I think people are understanding that what we're trying to do is help a community that really needs the support in ways that make sense. Bringing animals and people together for healing makes a lot of sense. And this year we're doing another campaign in May, and we're looking for sponsors. The way we always do our campaign, or try to, is to matching. So for every dollar that a sponsoring agency or corporate entity or bank or business, for every dollar that they pledge, there's donors that give, and so the pledge multiplies each donation by 2, right? And that makes it much more likely for people to step forward and give, and that's why we've been successful. So I just wanted to, first of all, thank the CSKT for recently participating and attending our gala that we held in mid-February, where we actually ended up netting $40,000 to help the work we're going to be doing this year with the camp and the spay neuter clinics. There was a table, and some of you, Martin was there, and several other people were there and were very supportive, and we were very honored to have them there. And Myrna spoke and Martin spoke at the gala, which I think is extremely important for the community to hear about the community that we're serving, particularly because this is Salish land. I mean, Missoula Valley and everywhere, and not everybody that comes there is kind of understanding that. So we're very grateful for that. But I wanted to kind of throw it out there too, that there's an opportunity for CSKT to become one of the several sponsors for our Missoula Gives. If there's an opportunity and the council would help us make that happen, as I said, anything that would be given would essentially be multiplied by 2. And our goal is to try to raise $25,000 this year at that campaign. We've grown a lot in the last year. So if we can find $12,500 worth of sponsors, and we're working on that, and Leslie is helping with a lot of her precious time to do that, talking to banks and corporate entities and Eagle Bank, among many others. If we can gather half of what we need to raise from sponsors, then we can hopefully reach our goal. And your support would be much appreciated. I don't have anything very specific to request, but I'm just, and overall, our mission is to give to this community, not to take from it. So I don't like asking for anything, honestly.
Sure,
But it does help us generate support in general that all ultimately comes back to the community.
Did you fill out a donation form?
Have not yet filled out a donation form, but we can certainly do that. I was kind of waiting to do this presentation first, and then perhaps get some guidance on what the most effective way of communicating about that would be, apart from just, submitting a form and where, because I know gaming, for example, they have their own form, but I don't know what other processes there are. So.
Okay. Carol?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think, we've been really active or trying to be very active and proactive in this role of what's going on here on the reservation with all the animals. And so I think what I would like to see is if council agrees that the chair send out a letter to our corporations along with the Housing Authority and Mission Valley Power and Eagle Bank and maybe SKC, who has dog problems, and SKHA Housing Authority, and see if we can put together a sizable contribution that will help them raise this amount. I think if each one of those entities gave $1,000, we could probably come pretty darn close to the 12,000. And I mean, because it is on the forefront of all of our minds, and thinking that my dog could have brucellosis, or even, the spay and neuter, which helps so many people if they just are aware of it. So we really need to do an active get out the spay and neuter campaign. So, but I would like to see it come from the chair to encourage those entities to please give abundantly to this campaign.
Yeah, if you would fill out that information, we can certainly pass that on to all our corporations, and they all have their own giving program within them.
That would be hugely appreciated. Last year we had, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I want to say we had about $8,000 in matches, and all of them came from, a lot of them came from Missoula banks and corporations, and some from the Flathead, various places, not from within the reservation so much. And that was what I wanted. Like I said, I see us as a conduit of resources to the community. But if we know that what we're doing here is encouraging giving, and then it's multiplied and it generates more support, then it's just more help going to the people. So we would appreciate that. We'll certainly provide that. I'll ask Leslie and to work with me to do that as quickly as we can. And then, yeah, any help just kind of getting the word out to those entities that you feel would be well positioned to help would be great.
You could go to MissoulaGives.org, and that's the portal where they do the nonprofit fundraising between May 4th and 5th. So that's pretty much what we're talking about, is the Missoula Gives. So anybody could really go there, and there's a link to look at our nonprofit, and they can do donations through there.
Their portal is interesting, but you can, once you go onto MissoulaGives.org, which is, by the way, organized by the Missoula Community Foundation, you can search by organization. So if you type in Arley Rehabilitation Center, that will then show what we're telling the community about what we stand for, why we exist, who we're helping, and what it means.
Go ahead, Carol.
The portal's all good, and I think I understand what you're saying there, but I think each one of those entities are still going to need a document stating that you are coming forward requesting a donation.
Oh, absolutely,
for the-
yes.
Okay,
Yeah. I think Leslie's point was just if anybody wants to look at some information and kind of see how it looks, they can do that. But we'll certainly provide that information, and I'm well aware that we need to go through that process. Thank you, Carol. I much appreciate it. And that's really all I have.
Okay. Just, so I know that we are looking in the Arley area for a community garden and that type of action. We looked at a place at the Arley Powwow Grounds, the first building coming in, I believe, onto the grounds, but there's a lot of landscape there. And so what I'm after is looking at how we double down and use things together in combination. So working with your hands in the soil and growing things is really healing also. And, you know, working with animals is so healing also. But also when you talk about, you know, having camps, having a facility for groups and camps, I'm thinking of powwow grounds. I'm thinking of how we could maximize and build into that and have multiple use. So when you're not having a camp, it becomes available for the powwow. So if we can look at that particular aspect of it, lands department staff, I would appreciate that. That might be another avenue to be able to hit what you want to do.
There are many creative ways, I'm sure, and anything that we discuss as ideas is
Well,
much
there's
appreciated.
surrounding lands we're not using there that are associated with the powwow grounds that could be dedicated for your purpose.
One of the things that I do want to mention is that the division, of course, does include both horses and dogs, and at least a couple, probably 2 horses, probably not more than that, but incorporating that into the therapy work that we do is very important.
There's a rodeo grounds associated with the powwow grounds.
That's true.
I think horses are okay.
That's true. And then as far as dogs, the reason for that, of course, is if they're community members in need. And there's never really been a very easy process of a facility where, you know, you have to put these dogs somewhere. And that's one of the reasons why animal control is difficult. You can make progress on that. Well, you have to have enforcement mechanisms. You have to have a place to put the dogs, and a safe place. And a place which doesn't impact the land and community in negative ways. So you have to do it in a respectful as well as a responsible way. And so kennels and fenced areas for the dogs to be kept safely, and you know, those kinds of facilities. We have to think carefully about how to envision that in a way that helps, while at the same time not creating problems. You don't want to obviously plop that in the middle of a neighborhood, right? Or something like that. Dogs bark. There's safety concerns.
I think the location I'm thinking about is no worse than the location you were originally looking at, across from the homes there. Maybe even farther away from housing. It's a big landscape out there behind the powwow, the rodeo grounds. Yeah.
Okay, well, we will look forward to exploring all options. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's been an honor. I really appreciate every one of you listening. Thank you so much, Carol.
I have land care for an update from the walk-in this morning.
Okay, yeah, follow up on that and we'll do that and then that'll be our last item for the day. Oh, do you? Okay, you can do it right now? Go ahead, Len.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, they're gonna have the highway cleanup tomorrow in Elmo, and they're requesting a change of duty for the employees with supervisor's approval. So I would like to make that motion to allow the employees a change of duty with supervisor approval to participate in the highway cleanup.
All right, motion by Len to approve the Elmo area highway cleanup, change of duty station for tribal employees. Seconded by Terry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Show of hands. Thank you. All right, thank you. I think it's Jennifer and Martin. Change of duty station for Arley for highway cleanup. No, I mean Elmo, excuse me, Elmo. My bad. Got Arley in my mind. Well, 5-4, 6-4. Motion passes. Yep. Well, Jennifer voted, so, and, 6 of us. I didn't get Martin. All right, Mark, what'd you find out? The guy trespassed, he built a house on someone else's land.
No.
Please tell us he did.
Jen, did you? Okay.
We need to go into executive session.
That's up to you guys. I don't think we do.
Yeah, we'll go into executive.